Hey guys, it's Ollie from Rad Season. I'm stoked to be joined today by former pro free skier, X Games competitor, ambassador, and motivational speaker, Jamie Crane-Mauzy, otherwise known as Jamie MoCrazy. Jamie, thanks for coming on the show. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, winter is in full swing, so really active and busy and fun and rad.
And you've been out skiing recently, right? I mean,
Yeah.
didn't you go? Was it yesterday or it was the day before?
Yeah, I actually is both.
Okay.
I do coaching, so I coach the competitive girls at Park
Mhm.
City with Team Park City. And I also do celebrity ski guiding, and I also ski for fun. So I have work all twined up in skiing. So I go roughly 5 days a week. And then on my other days, like today, I have 6 meetings from 8 in the morning till 8 at night. So I just like spread out the whole day of work stuff. So then I can just go ski on the other days. And yeah.
That's cool though. That makes sense just to sort of combine it, like when you are at home and you can kind of get the office stuff done and then it gives you that time to get outside the other days, right?
Yes, exactly.
Good stuff. I'd love to, yeah, I guess take it back to the beginning of where you grew up. So you're originally from the East Coast, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was born in Connecticut, outside in New York
Mhm.
City. My dad actually worked in New York City for roughly 50 years. And so we were commuter distance from there. And then I would go
Mhm.
skiing in New Hampshire. And I started going on the weekends, and then I would do long weekends. And then I moved up there in middle school age for the whole school year. So I would spend the school year for middle school and high school up in New Hampshire. And then I would go back to Connecticut every summer.
Right. And I mean, were you like where did skiing come about? Were you going when you were a kid? How did that all begin?
Yeah, well, skiing actually is in my blood. It comes from my grandmother, actually was a downhill champion, and my great grandmother actually made one of the first US ski team outfits when they went to the Olympics.
Oh, no way.
And so skiing's in my blood. And so I started skiing when I was a year old. And before, as soon as I could walk, I basically was on skis. And my mom, people would say, "Oh, did you put her on skiing looking at my career, like to be really good?" And my mom was like, "No, I put her on skiing because I'd way rather play with my daughter outside in the snow rather than inside. So I would just put her on skis to play."
That's cool. And I mean, and then it's sort of, it just becomes part of the lifestyle, right? So if your parents are already like, if they're going out and going on weekends and going into the mountains, then bring you guys along.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I have older sister who was really into skiing, and so she actually was going to a ski academy in New Hampshire, which helped us be up there for the whole school year and stuff.
Mhm.
So she would go training, and I would just come along as a baby. And then I have two younger sisters, and they would come along as babies as well. So it's just part of the lifestyle. It's just something we grew up doing. And I
Yeah.
actually grew up skiing, and then I started competing in gymnastics because I always loved flipping and climbing on everything. So I
Mhm.
grew up skiing and gymnastics. And then when I was 9 years old, I won the state championship in skiing. And I won the state championship in gymnastics the same year. And there was a newspaper article about me. And I said my dream fantasy was to combine skiing and gymnastics when I was older. And that ended up happening because when I was a kid, slopestyle and halfpipe skiing, which is what I went on to do professionally, didn't didn't really exist. X
Yeah.
Games didn't really exist, and X Games began when I was going. But when I was 17 in New Zealand, and I actually was competing at Junior World Championships, and it was pretty exciting because I actually won Junior World Championships, and I was doing an interview with IOC, the Olympic Committee people, and the International Olympic Committee, and they were asking whether we thought that slopestyle should be an Olympic event or not, and how we felt about that. So like that was I was in the process of that happening. So now there's little girls who I'm coaching and stuff who I guess they're like young teenagers, so they're not like even babies, but as young teenagers, like they know that they can go to the Olympics if they want to, they can go to X Games if they want to, they can do slope style and half pipe skiing. They understand what that is. When I was a kid, when I was 9 years old and that article was written, I didn't know a slope style existed. And so for me, it was either ski racing or gymnastics. And then when I found out I could combine them both, oh, I got so excited.
That's awesome. And with the girls that you're coaching now, I mean, are they aspiring for that then? Are they looking at that going, you know what, like we could potentially, if we go into slopestyle or half pipe, we can be doing that in the Winter Olympics? And
yeah, the girls I coach now at Team Park City, they're all already competing. So they're doing a future tour or rev tour. So they're competing in slopestyle and half pipe. So they're at the beginning of those stages and looking up to some idols in the sport. But yes, that's what they want to do, is they want to build it into a career.
Yeah. Nice. And for you looking back, I mean, so going from the juniors, would you say sort of like with the world titles of the juniors, would it then be the X Games? I mean, sort of like when that was, it's one of the pinnacle events within the sport. I mean, was that sort of one of your most favorite moments?
Yeah.
During your career?
Yeah, going to X Games was a huge dream of mine. And I got to go to X Games, and I got to go to Euro X Games when it was in France. And they were incredible experiences, and I loved it. And I've always loved to perform in front of a crowd of people. I've loved it. And that's one of the things I love the most about X Games is you just like, so one year I was the first woman in the world to compete and land a double flip at X Games. And when that was happening, my first run, I fell. And then on the double flip. And my second run, at the top, I just remember like breathing and like trying to calm myself down. And then my mind went blank as soon as I dropped in, because that happens a lot of times when you're in the zone. You don't really remember it, and you're just in the zone. So I'm going and everything's happening, and then I'm double flipping, doing a double backflip on the last jump, and I land it. And then I can just hear and feel the energy rushing back, and like the lights, like things are becoming color again. And there's this noise, there's this big booming, because there's all the audience, like they had just seen that and they all were going crazy. And that was just a wonderful feeling that I will remember always. And then something else about X Games that was cool was actually it's always in Aspen in the US, and it's transferred to different countries, different forms of X Games at different times. But my experience of European X Games in France was actually, it was huge, at least in person. There were so many people there, and they were they knew what was happening. They like would take my picture, and it would take me hours to go anywhere because everyone's just like flooding you. And that was kind of cool, because in the US, you don't really have much of a celebrity status in skiing, because it's not one of our broadcast sports. And they do broadcast the X Games, but a lot of people don't really know who the athletes are. And I did a lot of competing in Europe, and I've actually been recognized walking through the airports and stuff. And that's just like crazy to have that happen, because in the US, people are like, oh, like they have no idea. So that's one of the differences that I found.
And what was your any particular places or countries that you like skiing in over in Europe?
That's a good question, and the answer is all of them, but for different reasons. So I'll just elaborate really quickly, because a lot of people ask me that, and honestly, I can find something that I like about just about everywhere that I go. I love how big it is in like France and that part of Western Europe, France, Switzerland, Germany, how you can go to different mountains, and they're so big, and they're such a big pre-ski scene. So like after skiing, everyone just keeps hanging out and stuff. And I really like in New Zealand when I go for like spring camp, their spring, which is our October, and it's like all the flowers are blooming and it's really beautiful and it's spring down at the base, and then you drive a half an hour up to the mountain, and it's snowing still up there, but you always stay at the base, so
Yeah.
that's kind of cool. Yeah, but there's a lot of cool things about a lot of cool places.
That's it. And then I mean, so it's after, so that was in 2013, right? With the double backflip.
Yep.
Yeah, and then I mean, were you competing the year after that as well, or so sort of going from there? I mean, were you looking at these tricks and going, okay, like I'm going to try and push this and almost take that to the next level?
Yeah, I was still competing. I was still pushing it. I did the next year have a little bit of a knee injury. My knee was bone on bone, because my cartilage was taken out, so that was really affecting it and my landings and stuff. So I was actually having a really tough year that year, and I was struggling to actually make it through a run without falling because of my knee pain and stuff. And then I got stem cell work on it, and I was feeling much better. And then the next year, so beginning of 2015, I was like getting back in the zone, and I was starting to push it again, and I was like finishing and getting results. And so I was feeling really confident and happy for that year.
Yeah. And then in Whistler, so in April of 2015, I mean, that's when you were competing in the World Tour in the ski finals, and yeah, and then had that crash. Do you remember the run at all? I mean, like looking back and like what happened. Like I don't suppose if it's okay if you can kind of run us through.
Yeah, well,
Run us through the moment.
I can definitely run you through it, but I don't remember it. I don't remember the whole day or 6 weeks after.
Wow.
But I have heard the story so many times that I can tell it to you.
Yeah.
I was up at World Tour Finals with my little sister, Jeannie. And she was so excited because this was the first time she made World Tour Finals in half pipe, and she's going to get to compete. So that they have like that's our dress up event. So they have a gala. And so you dress up and go to the gala. And Jeannie loves to dress up, and she was so excited to see all her ski friends. She's actually known as the girl with the red lipstick in the half pipe competitions. So she was super excited about all that. Anyways, we're at the competition and it's slope style. So she's not competing, and she gives me a hug for my second run. Everyone knew that I was going to upgrade because my first run I ended up in 4th place. And I'm very competitive, and 4th place is not on that podium. So I had to upgrade and change my off-axis backflip to an off-axis double backflip. And so when I was doing that, she gave me a hug. I dropped in the first couple of jumps. I was pretty good. And then she saw me take off on the double flip, and it kind of looked like I landed, but then she didn't see me hit the next jump. And she still didn't see me hit the next jump. And then she heard the radio crackle to life. We need all hands on deck and a helicopter on standby. Without a word, she and my coach put on their skis, and as she skied and crested and saw me, she saw me convulsing. I was spewing blood, and my eyes rolled back in my head. And immediately her heart stopped, and she just got so much tension in her stomach because in the blink of an eye, she went from being my little sister to my caregiver.
Wow. And then were you airlifted off, or what? What happened?
Yeah. So a helicopter came in and I was airlifted. And something that's interesting is that Whistler has a doctor on the mountain. It's one of the only places in the world that does. And so they had a doctor come intubate me and shove a tube down my throat on mountain. And they came and put they put a needle in my arm, which seduced me because I was like convulsing, like people do when they're on the verge of death. My convulsing was like really sporadic, and I had ninja strength. So there was a girl who weighs 160 pounds roughly, and she couldn't hold my arm down. I was lifting her up with one arm. And let me tell you, on a regular basis, I'm not quite that strong. But I was just curling her up there, and so they seduced my body and calmed me down and put an intubator in my mouth before they even took me off the mountain. And then they airlifted me to the Whistler Ski Patrol, and then they did some taking care of me there, and then airlifted me down to Vancouver General Hospital because I had an extreme case.
Wow.
And actually, while they were airlifting me, my first responders wrote my fatality report because the statistics showed I would not even make it to the hospital.
Oh. And then you were in a coma, obviously, right? I mean, you were paralyzed down half the side of your body, and how long were you in a coma for?
So I was in a coma for 10 days, and I was in natural coma, not even medically induced. And I hurt my right brainstem, which is what paralyzed my right side. And actually, I was in a coma for 10 days. And then when I woke up, it's not like they show in movies all the time where you wake up and you can talk and it's kind of like you're back to normal. No, like I would wake up and I'd be awake. I'd open my eyes for like 3 minutes every like 3 hours. So it was like very spread out. And I didn't know anything. And I had no memory of the time. Like I said, I was in the coma for 10 days, but I had serious amnesia for 6 weeks. So still looking back on it now, I have no memory of that time. And when I was in the process, I don't remember that time at all.
Wow. And then now, so it like, it would have just been, it would have been family members telling you, you know, like what was happening during this time. And then obviously like your mum played a massive role and sort of like a vital role in sort of in talking and sort of helping with the recovery, right?
Yes. So that's one of the reasons why my mom and Jeannie and I are the founders of MoCrazy Strong, which is a brand that the idea, my nickname has been Jamie MoCrazy since I was a very little girl. And I would always be MoCrazy. And my last name is Crane-Mauzy, and the Mauzy part nobody can pronounce correctly. And so the announcers would be like, Jamie Crane, MoCrazy is on course. So it just stuck with me. And then in my accident, Jeannie actually, if you can see it a little bit, she came up with hashtag MoCrazy Strong. And so everybody wanted to know about it because it had been an event that was televised. They actually didn't show my crash on TV because it was recorded. So they decided not to show that because at the time when they were showing it, they didn't know if I was going to live or not. But it was a big event. And so everybody knew about it, and all like these X Games medalists and Olympic medalists were posting like good luck, hashtag MoCrazy Strong, spreading the awareness out. So there was like a venue, a way, the hashtag, everyone could get in touch with me. And then Jeannie created these little Live Strong wristbands that were pink because my favorite color is bright pink. And it always has been. And so she made these little bracelets that said hashtag MoCrazy Strong on them. And then the year after my injury, so in between on New Year's Day on 2016, so saying goodbye to 2015, I actually got this tattoo, and I got MoCrazy Strong on my arm. So that's where the MoCrazy Strong started. And then it took years of healing and recovery, years and years and years. The first year was like super intensive. Like I was working on recovering every single day. And that's how I went from someone who was paralyzed, someone who did not have any cognition, to who I am talking to you right now, is
Yeah.
because of all the work and everything. And I'll elaborate even more on what my mom put in, because she has been studying about the brain and how it works since before I was born. And she's done counseling. She had a federal grant from the government to teach self-esteem to women through their mindset transformation when I was a little kid. So she's been studying this forever. And so when I arrived in my accident, she actually had the understanding. She wrote an article about it a week earlier, which is super crazy because we have memories of the article, you know, like post, like, but a week before my accident, talking about how you have synaptic connections in your brain. So you have ions and dendrites that are like your roadways in your brain, and how the ions flow and transfer. And then the synaptic connections are if they go left or if they go right. They're kind of like the road lights in your brain. And everyone has billions of ion and dendrite connections and trillions of synaptic connections. And your synaptic connections are changed by the habits that you build. That's how you create the direction that your synaptic connections push you in. And she believed that understanding neuroplasticity, that you can recreate synaptic connections in your brain and brain pathways at any time in your life after any trauma in your life. So when I arrived, the statistics for brainstem healing and recovery are really, really low. It's like under 5% actually get movement of the body back.
Wow.
And the reason you get movement of your body back, one of the big reasons, is understanding neuroplasticity. And immediately, like when I was in the hospital and stimulators were put on my arm, as soon as that happened, so I did my hospital care. On top of that, my mom would have me make breakfast with my weak hand. And it was so difficult. Like, I don't get mad very often. And I was really upset because it took me an hour to make this breakfast with my hand. And I was just pouring milk and cereal and cutting up bananas with like a little knife. And it was so hard because my arm didn't move. But that's the thing, is that what happens is after a brain injury, your whole brain is covered in snow. And now you and I love powder days. I still love it. But in your brain, it's not that cool. And so in your brain, like if there's a powder day, your kids can't go to school quite often because why? The roads, right? The roads aren't plowed.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. All your roadways in your brain are not plowed. They're all covered in snow. But understanding neuroplasticity, you can redig them, but it's hard. It's like walking through snow up to your neck, which is really, really difficult. I haven't actually walked through snow since I was a little kid up to my neck, but it's really hard. I know it is. And if you walk those paths and you keep walking it, it gets easier and easier and easier, and then it works normally. Like when I'm talking to you, when I'm waving my hands, it's just natural for my right side and my left side to work equally because I walked the path so many times. Yet at the beginning of walking that path, it's so difficult, which is what the difference between support versus coddling with caregivers, because caregivers are the people who are thrust into the role of caring for someone who's had a life-changing injury. It's not like if you're going to be a doctor, you go to medical school, you do your residency. It takes like 12 years to go through it. If you're a caregiver, it takes one moment. And if you're a lawyer, you go through law school. If you're a caregiver, in the blink of an eye, you become a caregiver. And you don't have the education and you don't have the understanding of what to do in the role of being a caregiver, which is the role my mom and my sister were in. And I was incredibly fortunate because my mom had, like I said, all this training and master programs and college and master degrees. And like, she has like over 10 degrees about your mind and how your mind works and your nutrition and things like that.
Yeah.
But many people don't have that much knowledge going into a caregiver role, and you don't ask to be in a caregiver. You're thrust into that role, which is why my whole long story is getting back to why we created MoCrazy Strong to be an official brand, is because we understand how fortunate I was and my caregivers were, that they had the knowledge of what to do and how to create the outcomes that we wanted after my injury. And so within the past year, we've really been focusing on, I graduated college in 2019, and I was really focusing on my public speaking career and combining that into the MoCrazy Strong brand. So I do public speaking, and I have continued through COVID with virtual speaking now. But I speak, and then my mom is in charge of the workshops that we deliver and the programs that we do. And so we all work together to create this place where you can go to events. Of course, with COVID, we aren't having the live events this year, but they will be happening in the future. And so we're partnerships and a way for people to understand after your life gets a little bit more crazy and you encounter an unexpected trauma in your life, you can rebuild the life that you love. And here's how you do it. Because if you just think it, it's not going to happen. And if you just keep plodding along, but you don't think it, it's not going to happen. You need to know how to have fun, enjoy the process, and understand resilience to get back to a life you love after an unexpected trauma.
I mean, how did you deal with the uncertainty like during the recovery? I mean, was that something that you think, I don't know, having that grit from competing at a young age and, you know, having that willpower, was that something that helped you back then? Because I mean, like you said, I mean, we were like 5% chance, right, to gaining, you know, overcoming it, and then how did you deal with that?
Yeah, well, the grit. So one of the things that I actually think is very fortunate for me is that I don't remember it. And so at the very beginning stages, I don't remember it. And then as my mind was coming back, I still refused to understand that there was a very low chance of my recovery. I never understood that. And the big reason why I didn't understand that was because my mom would not allow that to be said in front of me. So even when I was in the coma and a doctor came in and was like giving my statistics for recovery and was like, here's the chance that she'll even ever walk again or accomplish or live independently. They said, well, they were like, she won't ever live independently. So you need to be prepared that you'll be taking care of her for the rest of her life. And my mom said, you need to leave the room because we don't have those conversations in front of her. And he said, well, she's in a coma. And she said, I don't care. You're leaving the room. And so they went outside to talk about it. So she was very, very forceful that if anyone was bringing up the negative or the positive, it wasn't going to happen. Because how she thought about it was, at this stage, at this time, let's do what we can control. Let's take the steps that we can take. We don't know if Jamie's going to live on her own. We don't know if Jamie's not. That's out of our control. Right now, what we can control is if Jamie swallows this glass of water. Right now, we can control is if Jamie passes the first lesson in Rosetta Stone in English, which is my native language. And after I had failed it 7 times, all we could control was getting to that stage where my cognition worked enough to pass that level of Rosetta Stone. We couldn't control whether I would be able to support myself or not. Those are beyond. So that's something that's really important for people to understand. And it can relate to everybody, is you can't control what's beyond you. What you can control is right now. So you can move, you can climb a peak, an alternative peak in the direction you want to go. But you can't control how beautiful the top is. You can't control when you come to the different views. What you can control is what you're doing right now. So setting attainable goals instead of only setting growth goals, which are the big goals. Attainable goals are goals you can accomplish every day that you set them. And that's all you can control.
Yeah. And so it would basically be just taking it step by step, looking at it day by day, right? And sort of having an end goal, I guess, in sight, but then kind of, you know, breaking it down and working on these smaller goals.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you within your talks and stuff, you speak a lot about like creating your own luck. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so with the concept of creating your own luck, it goes back to what you currently can control. And so I have been around and connected to people who, like one of my good friends, he got his leg amputated due to cancer when he was a teenager. That means he doesn't have a leg. The leg is gone. That means what he can control is what he can do without his leg.
Yeah.
And so he started competing in Paralympic snowboarding, and he actually went to the Paralympics and won the Paralympics, which is so exciting. But at the time he's setting his little attainable goals and creating his luck, he didn't know he was going to win the Paralympics like that. That's in the future. And that's the end result. And so with creating your own luck is the idea that if you keep taking these little steps and you keep controlling what you can and think creatively and accomplish what you can do, then the end result, people will say, that's so lucky. But there's so many steps that went into creating your luck, which is a concept that many people just say, oh, he's so lucky. Oh, she's so lucky. But if you dive into the stories of many of the most prominent figures, there's so many steps that went into creating that luck. And so if you take those steps and you have that creative mindset, you'll create your own luck. Another quick example about that was when I was in my rehab. I was able to walk again and stuff. And I wanted to go back to doing MoCrazy things. And I also understood, which was lucky I understood it, but I couldn't do that because it was too close to my brain injury. And even wearing a helmet, if I had hit my head again, it would have been really dangerous. This is just months after my coma. And so I wanted to skateboard, but I could not get on a skateboard because, like I said, fall and hit my head, really bad consequences. So we all thought creatively. My physical therapist, especially, and her intern were the ones who came up with this idea. And they said, Jamie, how about you bring your skateboard here and then we'll put you up on the apparatus that people usually teach people how to re-walk on again. So I was hooked up to the ceiling with a harness on. And so I could go skateboarding. And then if I fell, I would have just fallen onto the harness so I wouldn't have hit my head, which was great because at that time, besides it even being more dangerous to hit my head, my balance was totally off. My awareness was totally off. Like I would not have been able, I would have fallen all the time. Like for me, just like skateboarding on like a flats, I'm not going to fall. But at that time, I probably would have fallen because my body awareness was not there.
Yep.
So I went skateboarding in rehab all the time and I got to go skateboarding. So I created what I wanted to do and I got the lucky outcome by thinking creatively and figuring out what we actually could control. And that's the big concept about creating your own luck. And it ties back even before my accident. People would look at and say, oh, she's lucky. And then they find reasons why. They'd be like, oh, she's lucky she could do a double flip because of her gymnastics. Like they'd always find a reason why it happened, but they didn't really understand that there is so many steps that created that luck.
Yeah.
And that's what we share with people is that there's ways in your life that you can create your own luck in whatever outcomes you want to experience by setting attainable goals, being your own personal best. That's a huge thing that we kind of alluded to throughout this whole thing, but I'm going to touch on really quickly. So being your own personal best is when you're setting your little attainable goals, which are the goals you can do every day, you always perform at your best. And some days your personal best is, like for me, doing a double backflip. Another day, my personal best was passing the Rosetta Stone or swallowing water. So your personal best is different every day.
Yeah.
And even not as extreme as in my case, some days your personal best is accomplishing 5 things on your to-do list. Some days your personal best is going for a walk with your dog and seeing the outdoors. And that's what you should be doing. So that's your personal best. So every day it's different, but you have to perform everything at your personal best, even if your personal best is so low. And that's something actually we'll get into about my podcast, Life Gets MoCrazy. The last person I interviewed, Mike Shaw, he actually had an accident and he hurt his spinal cord and he was paralyzed, and he got back to walking and now he's back to skiing, which is he has a phenomenal story, and it's a great podcast. I get shivers listening to it. It's a great podcast because of him. Like, what he says is just fabulous. Anyways, one of the things he touched on was the same kind of concept of be your own personal best, but also making sure you have gratitude for all the little steps in the process. So, like, one of the things for him, which meant the most, was brushing his teeth by himself. And as he says, it wasn't even completely by himself. He had to have somebody hold a jar underneath that he could spit in and stuff like that. But it was being able to have some control over himself again, and to notice when you've encountered an unexpected trauma and your life has gotten more crazy, things are going to change.
Yeah.
But show the gratitude in the process for what you can accomplish as your own personal best.
And within the podcast, Life Gets MoCrazy. I mean, so it's essentially speaking to, and with your guests on the show, they've gone through some kind of unexpected trauma. Is that right?
Yeah. So Life Gets MoCrazy. It's on Apple Podcast and Spotify, and what it is, I do it once a week, so it comes out every Wednesday. And I interview people whose life has gotten more crazy. So they encountered an unexpected trauma and they overcame it, and they created their own luck, and they built lives that they love to live after an unexpected trauma. Because, like, being thrust into the caregiver role, like anything that has to do with an unexpected trauma, and I have interviewed some caregivers, you don't expect it to happen and you're not prepared for it. Yet the steps that you take create the outcome that you experience, which goes back to creating your own luck. Like, you have the power to, even if you have permanent changes in your ability level, everyone who wants to, you don't have to get depressed. You don't have to feel sodden and downtrodden. And I mean, I had to go through therapy. I had to go through that stage of feeling like my life was over and I had no purpose. So I had to go through the depression stages. That does happen to a lot of people who've had trauma, but you don't have to sit there. You can keep climbing an alternative peak and create your own luck, which is what these people talk about. And they have some ideas that are so inspiring and motivational. And it's also pretty cool to just hear how they overcame their trauma, because for everybody it's different. There is no black and white like blueprint. Okay, I can just read this book about how to overcome a trauma. No, everyone's story is different and unique, and they have different ways that they learned how to climb an alternative peak and create a life they love.
That's it. And then everyone has, I guess individual ways of dealing with it, both mentally and physically, right? And then it's not one size fits all with people recovering. It's sort of like you said, you just got to take it bit by bit.
Yep, and it's not one size fits all about the trauma either, because some traumas are big, and some are much smaller. Like, honestly, one of the hardest times in life for me was when I tore my ACL the first year I made X Games. And I was so excited, and I did not get to compete because I had torn my ACL. And emotionally, that was so difficult for me. So that trauma was even more powerful for me than the trauma that changed my life and my brain injury trauma, but the trauma of tearing my ACL. So people can't tell you if your trauma, you should validate it or not. If you are experiencing something that is changing your emotions and you have struggles in your life, it's you. No, I can't say that it's not worth it or it is worth it, because if you are experiencing this, then you need to find a way to get motivated, and you need to find a way to create your own luck, and you need to find a way to get over this trauma, no matter what it is, losing your job or anything. It could be injuries. Most of the people I've been interviewing so far have had injuries, which is very a relevant thing that you can see, but it could be emotional, and it could be, I actually did interview someone who theirs was addiction. So it can be addiction, it can be emotional, it can be losing your job, whatever kind of unexpected trauma. There's no one size fits all for the trauma, and there's no one size fits all for the recovery process.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And now, I mean, you've got quite a lot on with speaking and coaching with the podcast. What other kind of are there any projects that you have coming up later this year, or kind of things that you're working on?
Well, we have a lot of projects and things we're working on right now. So we have some, and COVID is, we're trying to see how it like plays out, because one of the things that we were planning on doing this year, and then it just did not make any sense. But we are having some women focused retreats where you can come and do mindset as well as physical. So come to go hike, go cross country ski, go mountain bike, go skiing, go play in the mountains during the day. So we do like athletics, some fitness stuff during the day to get your heart pumping. And then also we talk about your struggles, set attainable goals. We go through the whole mindset of the journey. So we're going to be having some events. And the plan right now is to have the events starting potentially this summer. And so, like I mentioned, we that's not tied in. There are some speaking events like in person that I'm maybe gonna do. I'm not quite ready to share all those yet because they're still kind of not at the like official gonna happen at the time we say yet stage. We're also reconstructing the whole website, and we're working with a company that is fantastic, and they're actually based out of Lisbon, Portugal. And so we've been working with them, and so we're going to have a one page up, and then we can see the website come to life, and you'll be able to sign on for some programs. Like right now, what we do currently have that is happening is we have a food mood course. So how like your nutrition and the food that you take into your body affects your mood, your depression, your anxiety, and allows you to create what you want in your life, and how your nutrition really affects that, and the difference between saturated fats and natural fats, and why we actually need natural fats, but we don't need saturated fats, and we don't need carbohydrates. And we'll just like to tone it down and to tell you how much of everything you need.
Yeah. Nice. What's the best way for everyone to find out what you're doing and to follow what you're up to?
Yeah, well, so the best way to find out what we're doing is to follow us on MoCrazy Strong on Instagram, or MoCrazy Strong on Facebook. And like I mentioned, we are reconstructing our website. So as of right now, you cannot sign up for the courses on our website, but we are having them, and they're not, it's not like a set date that you need to sign up by. It's a 12-week course. So whenever you feel it's right for you and your lifestyle to sign up for it, just message us on Instagram, and we will give you the link to sign up for it. And then you can start the 12-week course, and it might change your life and allow you to know how nutrition affects your mood. And really quick, that is something that was huge in my recovery process. Is once I got off the feeding tube, we created, my family would make and bring in food for me, so they would have it be all natural and organic. And because of my brain injury, I couldn't have different flavors and substances, so very, very simple. And what was good for your brain, because different foods are better for your brain. And like omega-3s and fish oils are really great for promoting your brain health. So they just tied it all down, and that was a really big thing that helped in my recovery process, is the nutrition. And especially right now with COVID and everyone feeling a little bit overwhelmed and stressed. I mean, I know I have those days, but I also know if I'm having one of those days where I feel overwhelmed and stressed, I should go take an omega-3 supplement and eat some spinach and drink some water. Like, we all need so much water. So just taking water, or even on top of that, tea. Because when you take liquid, you don't just need to have water. You can have some green tea or some black tea, and then that can like calm you down and put you in the zone. So if I'm having a bad day, I know how to stop having a bad day. And so that's what the Food Mood course is about. And the best way to contact me is through social media.
Awesome. Jamie, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been inspiring listening to your story, and it's really good how this is helping and motivating others. And yeah, we'll definitely be following what you're up to, and yeah, we'll definitely be keeping in touch. Thanks for your time.
Thanks. 1 second. So one last thing. Besides social media, if you don't have social media, you can email us at mocrazystrong@gmail.com. So if you want to sign up for the Food Mood course, or you want to get in touch with me or contact anyone on my team, you can email us if you don't have social media. That's what I was going to say.
Awesome. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Virtual hug.